Shalom. Call Haloyamla, Yahapwa, Bahasham, Yahapwashai, Bahasham, Barak Kodash. Barakta Yahapwa, Barakta Yahapwashai, Barakta Barak Kodash, Bahasham, Yahapwashai, Bahasham, Barak Kodash. Shalom and double honors unto the elder apostles of Great Millstone. Shalom to the elders in the Akim and the Akwata, the hopeful elect. Shalom. I want to go into a quick video entitled The Big Apple, New York, and how it connects to the serpent from the garden. In the spirit, the Most High bless me, in the name of Yahweh Shai, bless me, with this lesson here. So I just want to go ahead and, Lord willing, I can break it down through the spirit, and Lord willing, that this video is edifying. So we'll go ahead and start here. In Genesis chapter 3 and verse 1, it says, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which the Lord Yahweh, the Most High Power, had made. So now when you look at that, the serpent was that he was more subtle than any beast of the field. And we know the Most High he references mankind as beasts sometimes, right? And that's pursuant to what the book of Daniel, I think chapter 2, the statue, Daniel chapter 7, the four beasts, and that represented nations and kingdoms that was going to come in the future, right? So we know that right here, this beast is talking about a man. So this serpent is a man, and he was more subtle than any man of the field. And we know that the field is the world. So let's go ahead and get that field real fast. Matthew chapter 13, I think it's 38. Yeah, so the field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, that's the Israelites, so-called blacks, Latinos, Native American Indians. But the tares are the children of the wicked one. So the tares, that's the seed of the wicked one. And who was the wicked one? The so-called Edom, the so-called white race, the Edomites. So the key point I want to get is the field is the world, right? So the serpent is more, now the verse 1 again, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. So we know that the serpent is a man, and he was more subtle than any beast, meaning any man in the field, which was any man on the earth. So we know that it wasn't just Adam and Eve that was alive at that time. So because the serpent was there, and that's a man. And we know when there's a deceiving, wicked person in your life, you call him a serpent or a snake, right? If he does something that to one up you or to try to usurp you, right? So anyway, let me go ahead and let me get this real quick. So let's get subtle. So subtle, the word subtle is a rum. So in the Hebrew, and it means subtle, shrewd, crafty, sly, sensible. So it's a crafty, it's a sly, a slick person, right? So we'll get that word sly. Let's Google define it real fast. It says having or showing a cunning and deceitful nature. Deceitful, what's the root word of deceitful? Deceiver. And we know who the deceiver, aka the devil, the Bible speaks of, the so-called white man, and he deceives all nations, right? So when we look at the similar words right here, boom, similar words: cunning, crafty, clever, wily. So when you go in that word wily, skilled at gaining an advantage, especially deceitfully. So he's a tricky fellow, right? That's the Esau Edomites, the so-called white man. And so when you go to wily, and we'll get the precept for wily, right? Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 11. Put on the whole armor of Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. Why? Because let's read verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. Principalities goes into the spiritual demon Satan, which we can't see, and devils and demons we can't see. And the physical manifestation of the spiritual demons Satan and devils and demons is the so-called white race, because they push everything after the vibration. Their comings after the working of Satan, right? But against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, because everything is wicked, right? against spiritual wickedness in high places. So going back to verse 11, the wiles, I want to get that word wiles, we just went to wily, right? That's the subtle beast of the field, the subtle man of the earth. Wiles, cunning arts, deceit, craft, trickery. And as it reminds me that because we know that the serpent, just off this alone, wiles, wily. So wiles goes into trickery. So I know there's this sportscaster, this sports analyst on the ESPN. His name is or FS1, Fox Sports Net, right? His name is the show is called First Things First, and on that sports show, one of the three hosts on there, and one of the guys' his name is Kevin Wiles. And so I thought that was interesting. One day I looked up that word wiles, and it goes into trickery. So why does the so-called white man has a last name? One of his last names that he allots himself is Wiles, which means trickery, because he's the devil, he's deceitful, and he's the cunning, subtle beast of the field, the serpent from the garden, right? It's the same spirit that's in the serpent is in the so-called white man. So that's how you tie that together. So he's the so-called white race. One of their last names that they have is Wiles, which means trickery. And that alone, if and if the spirit's dealing with you, or dealing with those of the one, the hopeful elect, you can put these pieces together. It's right there in plain sight. It's hidden in plain sight. So from there we'll get verse 3. It says, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Yahweh hath said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. Because if you eat of the philosophies of mankind, which is after Satan, which is sown to the flesh and not the spirit, then it leads to death. The wages of sin is death, and carnal philosophy is death. Spiritual teaching and guidance from the Most High is life everlasting through Yahweh Shai, right? So that's what that fruit is. The fruit isn't a literal piece of fruit that you physically eat and ingest in your body, but it's what you ingest and you process in your mind, and you take it for good, good guidance, and you use that as your counselor to walk in the steps of wicked fruit of wicked spiritual philosophies, right? So the Most High was putting Adam and Eve upon on the proper direction, is that they do not listen and follow after these wicked men in the earth, or the wicked beasts of the field, but do what he told them. Don't eat from the fruit of wicked trees, and trees are men. In this sense, trees and beasts, and in this particular instance, the trees are men. And we'll go to Mark chapter 8 and verse 24. And he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. So we know that trees, and depending upon the context, is talking about men. And we know beasts, but pertaining to particular context, is talking about men. And beast, and the serpent is not talking about a literal snake that slithers on his belly, but it's a man, a deceiving trickery, a wily, cagey demon of a man, right? Deceitful man. So in verse 6, and when the woman, and that's Eve, she was simple, and because women are deprived of wisdom, that's why they have to have a hedge, and their head is their man. But a woman is easily beguiled by another man if she doesn't stay in order and follow her man, which is her husband, which is her head. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that food goes into spiritual food and not literal food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise. And now we know that this tree is representing a man. And the trees represents men in particular context, because man produces fruit. Now, either the tree, which is a man, produces good fruit, which is from the doctrine of the Most High through Yahushua, or he has the fruit of Satan. And Eve was following the fruit of the serpent, which is the fruit of Satan. And because it appeased to her flesh, because women are simple, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise. She took of the fruit thereof and did eat. So she took the philosophy from the serpent and got gamed up on the left hand side from Satan by the serpent, which was a man, same spirit which is in the white man today, so-called white man today, Esau Edom. To be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat. So she processed it, and then she liked it. It sounded good to her, it appeased her flesh, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. So she, the best way, the easiest way for a enemy to get to another man is through his woman, because women are the gets because no one get closer to a man than the woman can. So the serpent, that's why he's the most deceitful, the most wily, cagey veteran of the earth of all men, because he knows how to destroy a nation is through their women. And that's why they have phrases like what? Happy wife, happy life. But it's actually a happy husband, happy life, because if a woman pleases her, keep her man and follows him, and like the Most High said, that a woman's desire should be to her husband. So if her desire is to her husband, she's taking care and pleasing her husband, right? And in all aspects of life. And then her life is going to be great because she's fulfilling in the proper righteous order that the Most High set. But Satan, so-called white man, he comes and he creates these philosophies that caters to the woman. And we see that the woman right here, she's always prone to go according to Satan's philosophies and after his fruit, right? So that's what happened. She beguiled, she smooth talked and finessed Adam and made him go off, because the sin was through the woman, and she brought it to her man, which the man is easily can be persuaded by the woman if he doesn't have his, if he's not on his P's and Q's, with the woman and how he deals with the woman, because that's why the scriptures say. Let's just go ahead and get it. 1 Peter 4 and 7. But hold up. Maybe it's 3 and 7. Okay. 1 Peter 3 and 7. Likewise, ye husbands, talking about the men of Israel, dwell with them. Who is them? The women, our wives. Dwell with them according to knowledge from the Most High, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. So if you let the woman, if men of the Lord let women, beguile them and get smooth talk into following what they think is right, then they're going to fall, because the woman is the weaker vessel. The man is the stronger vessel. He's the head. The head is greater than the body. That's why Yahushua is greater than the body of the elect. So, and then the head of Yahushua is Yahweh. So we have to be on our P's and Q's and give respect, give woman respect, but understand that she's the weaker vessel. It's all in about proper order and the hierarchy of existence that the Most High set up, which is righteous and just. So going to Matthew chapter 4 and verse 4. But he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of Yahweh Bahasham, Yahushai. So, that phrase, food for thought. So there's food for our physical bodies, and there's food for our spiritual soul, right? And the food for our spiritual soul that we should live by is the spirit. And we know what is spiritual. The law is spiritual. So the commandments from the Most High, that's how we should live. But if you, Proverbs 7 and 2, keep my commandments and live, as the Most High say. So we know that food for thought, that food, so this apple goes into spiritual food and not fleshly food, which is death. And Eve ate of the fleshly fruit, which is the philosophies of wicked heathen men, and that leads to death. And death entered into Israel through Eve's simplicity. And so now going to into the word into New York. Now we know New York is referenced as what? The Big Apple. So what's that apple? That's the same philosophy from the Garden of Eden, where the serpent beguiled Eve and tricked and deceived and was wily and tricked Eve into following after the philosophy of Satan. So the same thing with New York today. It's the new modern day Garden of Eden. It's the new. It's on the left hand side. It's the garden today because all nations, Esau, Edom, so-called white man, has what and has influenced all nations to come and strive to come to come hell or high water to get themselves over to America, Babylon the Great, and eat of the philosophies of America. And they've all thought that this was the place to come to, right? And so through that, Revelations 18:3, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And that's not the literal wine, that's spiritual wine, the apple from the garden, the philosophy of Satan, of her fornication, because anything that leads you away from Yahweh and Yahweh Shai, in the name of Yahweh Shai, is fornication. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. So the kings goes into the rulers of all of the heathen nations have committed fornication. So all the heathen nations are committing fornication with the so-called white man, the Edomites, because they're being tricked by the wily serpent from the garden. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And what's her delicacies? The children of Israel, so-called blacks, Hispanics, Native American Indians. No other nation has Salakia. No other nation has the delicacies of Babylon the Great, because they have the jewels of the Most High, the Israelites. And so this place was built and set up off of the backs of the Israelites. So one would lead you to understand that the so-called white man is the devil the Bible speaks of. So when you go to Revelation 17:2, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and that's the apple from the garden. And the big apple today it's morphed into the apple now. To the big apple, because it's great wicked philosophies now, even greater than in the past. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. And that's the covering cast over all nations. Let's get that real quick. Isaiah 25:7. And he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people, and the veil that is spread over all nations. So when you put a covering over somebody's eyes, they can't see properly, right? And that's the main strength of Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, is what? His deception, his lies, his deceit, his philosophies. That's of Satan. And he's made everyone think that America is the place, that this is the greatest place on earth in the history of mankind. Come over here and make a ton of money, and it's all good. It's okay. Come over here, just come wear a 3-piece suit, and you can start open up your businesses, and you can make all the money you want off the backs of the slaves that they've destroyed. The Israelites, so-called blacks, Hispanics, Native American Indians. That's all that's happened. That's all that's going. That's when you break it down to the nuts and bolts. That's all it is. So the Big Apple, it's the philosophy of the serpent from the garden. So when you go to Revelations chapter 12 and verse 9, and the great dragon, see that dragon, he transformed into over the centuries, over the millenniums. He's transformed from a serpent to a great dragon. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent. See, that serpent from what serpent? From the garden. That's how you tie it together. And that dragon in Revelations 12, real quick, let's drop down real quick. Let's go to verse 3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon. And that red, we know Esau Edom came out red all over like a hairy garment, right? From Genesis. So I believe Genesis 27 or 25. So as Esau Edom, he graduated from a little serpent to a great red dragon. Because what does the dragon do? Fly in the air. What does the so-called white race do? They fly in the air with what? Their military might, their fighter jets, all of that mess, right? And behold, a great red dragon. But this is going into the Roman Empire, and and America is that modern day Roman Empire. And behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. So those 7 heads goes into the ancient so-called white rulerships: the Greeks, the Romans, the French, the Spanish, Germania Major, Germania Minor, and Great Britain. And the 10 horns, that's the 7 heads, and then the 10 horns is NATO and EU. That's another topic. I'll go on into that before in other videos. But so just to know that this is talking about, so that this is how you tie together the old serpent from the garden to the great red dragon today, which is Esau Edom. He's morphed he's morphed into a great red dragon now from the garden, from the serpent. Okay, and so I was at 12 and 9, Revelations 12 and 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil. Devil goes into false accuser and slanderer and deceiver, and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. That wily serpent from the garden, the wiles of the devil, he was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So that's going to the white man. When Yahushua returns, he's going to be destroyed. When the Messiah, Yahushua, a so-called black man you will call today, our big brother, he's going to return at the commandment at the time appointed from Yahweh. And then the great red dragon, Esau Edom's going, the serpent from the garden, the devil and Satan, he's going to be destroyed with. That's why Trump had said they need to make a space force. Why would you need to have a military for the space, for the heavens above? Because they know the Messiah, Yahushua, is going to return into the heavens, going to return, and he's going to be in the skies with all the chariots, so-called UFOs of heaven, invading this realm to destroy the devil the Bible speaks of. So that's what's going down. And so going to Isaiah 14 and 4. That thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon. So what's Babylon? Babylon the Great today. The king of Babylon, that's the so-called white man, the America. And say, how hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. So we know that Babylon is not, the ancient Babylon has morphed into Babylon the Great today through the so-called white man, because Babylon, the root word is Babel, and Babel means confusion. We're in America boast themselves of what? This is a great melting pot. And when you mix everything together, it's confusion. You can't tell one from the other, right? All philosophies have been molded together, and that's why it's Babylon the Great today. So Babylon, that golden city. Now we know America, the golden city represents America as a whole, but and when you break it down even more microscopically with the scope, the golden city, the chief, the greatest golden city in America is what? New York, the Big Apple, the golden city, because all the rest of the country follows the lead from New York, then to California, and then Washington D.C. is what? The military defense capital of the country. But the golden city, where they get all of their riches, the richest city, where they get all the money is from New York, because it's the greatest imports, that, because they're by the water right there, directly receiving everything coming from the eastern countries, from Europe and Asia and Africa. And that's how they're the greatest golden city of the great golden city, which is America, right, as a whole. So how are they going to cease? The oppressor of the Israelites is America, and chiefly, and the chiefest of the cities, the chiefest golden city is New York, the Big Apple. Not just the apple from the garden, not just the fruit from the garden, the big fruit, or AKA the Big Apple, or Babylon the Great. Great confusion, great wickedness. So from there, let's go ahead and get the Big Apple. Revelation 17:5. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great. Why is it a mystery? Why? Because ancient Babylon of Nebuchadnezzar, the so-called Hamites, the so-called Africans, it wasn't a mystery. We all know about that rulership and empire that got destroyed, right? It had the ancient Israelites, it had the Jews, the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Old Babylon had the southern kingdom in captivity under Nebuchadnezzar. But Babylon the Great is a different Babylon. A future Babylon is going to have the whole 12 tribes, the Golden City, the whole 12 tribes of Israel, so-called Blacks, Latinos, Native American Indians, the southern and northern kingdom back together, being oppressed like the ancient Egypt times. And we know what happened to ancient Egypt, right? So that's soon to come again. So Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. So everything going on in the earth is a direct reflection of America, aka Babylon the Great, aka the so-called white race, the Edomites, the Esau Edomites, the red people. Why are they red? Because their skin is leprous. They don't have melanin, so their blood show forth through their skin, and that's why their skin is red. They're the red people of the earth, and that's that mark. That's that mark of Cain that the Most High cursed the so-called white man, cursed Cain with, and Cain is the grandfather of the white race and grandfather of Esau Edom. Basically the father Esau Edom, right? Because they are regenerated, because Cain is regenerated and came back through Esau Edom. So from there we'll go to Isaiah 13 and 19. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms. So that's why Babylon is Babylon the Great, because it's the glory of it's not just the glory of Babylon, but it's taken the greatness of Babylon and all the heathen nations throughout history, and the so-called white man taking them all together, because they have East Indian philosophies as well, of yoga and all of that stuff. That's why these women wear these yoga pants, and it's just great whoredom, right? Throughout, all of these women are whores. The way they dress. Let's go to your local Walmart. Just go anywhere. Just go outside. You'll see women wearing these yoga pants and yoga shorts, and these. I seen a woman yesterday, in HEB, and literally all her legs was out, and then the only thing was covered. Her rear end was barely covered, and if she moved too hard one way or the other, she could have been exposed. It was unreal how women. It's unreal how women dress like such whores nowadays. This is the end of society, and women are dressing their most ridiculously whorish. Right? It's crazy. But let's see, where were we at? Isaiah 13 and 19. So that's the glory of kingdoms. Everything that's so wicked of all heathen nations are all put together in a pot, and then everybody's over here just lost out their mind. Everyone's whores and whoremongers. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when Yahweh overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. So we know ancient Babylon landmass is Iraq today. So we know Iraq is a functioning country over there. So we know. So what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah? Fire and brimstone. So we know that that's not talking about ancient Babylon. This is a future Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, Babylon the Great, the Golden City, aka America, headed by New York. Excuse me. So, and so also New York, the NBA basketball team is what they call what? The New York Knicks. And what is the New York Knicks? What is their sports arena called? The Garden. The Garden, right? No, I'm sorry. Madison Square Garden. So why does it say the Garden? It's because it's a depiction. It's a mockery of the Garden of Eden. They came over here because there's a place I think in the east called York, and then they called this area out here their chief golden city. Slovakia. The chief golden city is New York here in America, so-called America, Babylon the Great. So New York, Madison Square Garden is where the New York Knicks play the NBA team, right? So that's a spinoff. And so what happened? So this is the modern day Garden of Eden on the left hand side, because America is the height. This is the so-called white man's pinnacle of his existence. This is his heaven. And so this is his paradise. This is his Garden of Eden. And he puts all of the pieces to the puzzle right there in our faces. If the spirit just have to be with you to be able to see it all, and it's hidden in plain sight, because New York is called what? The Garden. New York is called the Big Apple, and then their basketball team for New York is what? The New York. I mean, their arena is called the Madison Square Garden. The apple. Apple is what? A fruit. So the fruit in the garden, and then all nations come over here to New York to eat the main key philosophies of Satan, the so-called white man, and then everyone gets tricked by the wiles of the most subtle beast of the field, the serpent. And that's how it all comes together, and everybody's drunk with the wine of her fornication. So let's go to Isaiah 28 and verse 10. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little. So we don't read the Bible as a novel. We don't read it from page 1 to page 100. We read it. You have to get, like I'm doing, we have to go here and get this and go over here, go to the New Testament, go to the Old Testament, everywhere, and go to the Apocrypha, get it all, go everywhere. It's a puzzle, and you put it together. It's okay to read chapters, but you have to, to get the most heightened understanding of the Bible, you have to go be able to connect the pieces all over the Bible, because there's pieces that you can't understand unless you piece it together throughout the, unless you jump around from chapter to chapter and testament to testament, and from the Apocrypha as well. So, and then on the right hand side, that's how you understand the Bible on the right hand side. But then you piece together and see what Esau's doing on the left hand side, how we realize that New York is the golden city, the chiefest golden city of the golden city America. And then the New York Knicks, he calls it the Madison Square Garden, and then the Big Apple in New York, the apple in the garden, the fruit in the garden, eating from the fruit in the garden, right? From Satan, the serpent. So you put all these pieces together, and then you can see who's the serpent and who's the devil the Bible speaks of. So going from there to Revelations chapter 14 and verse 4. These are they which were not defiled with women. So that women goes into these heat, because the Most High references women. Just like the beast represents nations, women represents nations as well. So the elect will not be defiled with the philosophies of women, which is headed by the so-called white man, their philosophies, right? These are they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins, because the hopeful elect, and chiefly the elect, are waiting upon Yahweh and Yahweh Shai to redeem us, and we're blessed with we have the proper doctrine. We know the hopeful elect have the proper doctrine, and we're patiently waiting and hoping we're chosen to be a part of the elect by Yahweh and Yahweh Shai. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth, the Lamb Yahweh Shai. These were redeemed from among men, because Yahweh Shai is our head. And he's going to come back and redeem his body, the 1/3 elect of Israel, so-called Black Latinos, Native American Indians, being the first fruits unto Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, and to the Lamb Yahweh Shai. So we know, so the fruit of Satan you don't eat from, but hopefully the elect men, which are the prophets, elders, and teachers of the elect, they have the fruit from Yahweh Shai. They produce more fruit because they abide in the vine Yahweh Shai. And then the branches, when you see a tree, a fruit tree, right? The branches yield fruit. So the branches is the elect body of Yahweh Shai. And so Yahweh Shai taught them, the Yahweh Shai taught the elect, which is the branches. And then the branches, that's chiefly the 144,000, which are the prophets and the teachers and the elders. They teach, right? And then they teach their fruit, they yield fruit. And that's going to be the 1/3, the remaining 1/3 body of the elect of Israel. So it's okay to eat the fruit from the elect, because why? They have the true proper doctrine that's passed down from Yahweh to Yahweh Shai, and Yahweh Shai, the Messiah, our mediator, he passed it down to the elect body of 1/3 body of the Israelites. So yeah, with that being said, I just want to go into this video because the Spirit just prompted me with some precepts, in the Spirit, to piece together, the Big Apple, New York. It connects to the serpent from the garden. So with that being said, the water to the Rachakodash for another edifying video. The water to the Rachakodash for another video. To the next video, I say, Shalom.